Hi guys, welcome back to the workshop. So in our previous videos we've covered basic edging and basic stitching. So you've got pretty much everything you need to know now to actually be able to go ahead and make a project. But what if you want to decorate it? Because a big plain piece of leather like this, not very exciting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this design onto this piece of leather using carving tools and punches and stamps. For this, you're going to need a few more specialist tools. You do need some sort of soft-headed hammer, a few striking punches of various different shapes and sizes, but for a basic one, all you really need is an angle and maybe a pear shader. A couple of styluses you can make do with a teaspoon, a ball-ended stylus or a ballpoint pen that's run out of ink, and some sort of small sharp blade to cut in. I like this one, but more traditionally for modern leather workers is a swivel knife. You're probably going to want a whetstone of some description, and you're going to want your design and pattern. So I've slicked up all the edges on this, got it all nice and ready, put it on my carving plate, which is good and solid metal. Next up, I need to wet the whole thing down. So I'm going to take my ordinary, everyday household sponge, clean water, and run it into the skin. This is called casing. And once that's good and damp, not soaked through, but good and damp, I'm going to put that off to one side and start working on transferring my design from paper onto tracing paper. So if you're like me and terrible at drawing, this is great. You can find a design or a piece of artwork, in this case a Celtic inspired hare, and then all I'm going to do is take a pencil and draw around it. It's important at this stage to work from one side of the design to the other so that you don't end up getting lead or graphite on the outside of your fingers, because then when you move on to the leather it will stain it. Some people like to tape it down at this stage. I'm not too fussed on this design, I'll just go around it by hand, but on a more complicated design it is useful putting a tack strip at the top so you can open and check. I'm not going to include every detail in the design as it will get a bit lost as we translate it onto the skin. Go, and that's ready to put onto the leather, which is our next step. Now the leather wants to be cool to the touch, but not damp. So I'm going to leave that for another couple of minutes. Now, one additional step that if I'm going to be doing a lot of hammering and tooling, I like to do is turn the piece over, get some tape, and put it across the back of the piece. And this just prevents it spreading as you're hammering into it. Good old Black Nasty gaffer tape works brilliantly for this. If you haven't got that, any form of adhesive contact tape that will hold on, it just adds a little bit more, because as you're hammering it has a habit of pushing the leather out and over. And what adding this tape layer on the back does is it gives it that little bit of added strength and a little bit more rigidity. It's not a necessary step, but sometimes it's worth doing. And then just tidy it up. Again, this isn't essential, it just saves you sticking to your piece at a later date. and whip all the way around. Chuck that lot away, and we're ready to go. I'm going to work out where I want it on my piece. This is a left forearm archer's brace, so I want it to run one corner to the other or down the middle. I quite like one corner to the other. And again here, I'm just going to put the smallest of bits of tape to tack the edge down. And I'm going to take a working ballpoint pen and trace over the design. Again, ensuring to keep my hand away from picking up any additional graphite from the pencil. At this stage, you can double check and see if there's any further detail that needs added in anywhere or anything that you don't like the line of, and you can just change that with your stylus or with your ballpoint. Now you can continue in this style with a ball-ended stylus, just go around absolutely everything and just trace all of the lines in. And that's certainly one way of doing it. Again, we're moving the piece around and not trying to work at funny angles. And this, over and over and over, just repeat and repeat and repeat. Eventually you build up a nice fine line. But we're going to assume I want a slightly more popped version than that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our swivel knife or our cutting blade, make sure it's good and sharp. Give it a quick clean off. Then we're going to come to the piece and I'm going to cut the outside lines. So pressing firmly down. This is your last chance to change anything. Once the lines are cut, they're in the leather. So if there's anything you're not sure of at this point, take the time to correct it. Now what I'm doing is I'm holding the blade with my index finger and then pinching it so that I can turn it and control it. This is entirely dependent on who you are as a carver. Some people like to hold it and control it with their index finger, some with the middle finger, some on the first knuckle, some on the second, but whatever's comfortable for you. And there are different blades. This is just a straight wedge profile, so it just does a very basic cut. I'm going to continue on here, cutting all the way around. Now you'll notice I'm only doing outside lines here, none of the spirals inside or interior design. And that's because I want them to be a little bit different, a little bit shallower. So by not cutting the lines into the skin, I'm going to end up with a difference as it goes inside the piece. There we go. Happy with that. I'm also going to score all these edges because I want there to be a little more depth in there. So it's just a case of, once again, place the blade in, follow the line that I've already set. And now we're going to start punching the design in using our heads. The pear shader will come later. First off, I'm going to use this plain beveled punch. All I'm going to do simply is grip it firmly between fingers and thumb, place it in against the line and hit it all the way around, consistently pressing that leather in. Now, if your hammer's getting a bit old like mine, sometimes the hits aren't quite as accurate as you'd like because of the dish inside the hammer. So as you can see, I've sort of reverted to using the edge of mine occasionally. Alright, most of the time. Every now and then, I'm just picking the piece up and giving it a little bend and flex to make sure that all my lines are carving how I actually want them to. Now, once you've gone all the way around the edge, and you can see there's a distinctive edge. I'm going to put this away, and I'm going to go to one of my teaspoon type tools, the spoon bit or the rod, and I'm just going to go around the inside and tidy it up. This isn't strictly necessary, it's just something I like to do. Then just take the sharpness off the outer edge. Again, this is personal preference. I just like it when it slopes ever so slightly instead of this harsh edge. You end up with a slight bevel. It is only very slight. And then for the insides, I want this to overlap. So I take the top layer and the back layer in the image, and then I bevel a good sharp line into it, so you can see the transition. Now, depending on the piece, you may literally just do it with one of these tools and not hammer it in at all. Now, I'm going to go back to the punch for the interior detailing. This is much, much lighter, just to put a very slight bevel into the piece. Now with the Celts and the Celtic imagery, they love to use these spirals to show off muscle groups and shape. So what I'm doing is this front leg wants to sit over the belly and the back leg wants to pop from it. So I'm just beveling in that angle to give it a bit more depth. Once you've done it basically all the way around, you can go back, just tidy up all of these lines that you've previously made. Just carrying on, and just touching up, and making sure it's as deep and beveled on the outsides as we want it to be. you just keep going over and over until you're happy with it. Obviously, the more you press the leather in, the darker this bevel's going to get, the steeper the bevel is going to get. But because of the shape of the head of the tool, if you press it vertically down onto the piece, you'll get a steeper one. If you lean it slightly, you'll get a more gentle taper and slope in. So that's really all you have to do. That's the basic idea. However, there's a lot more finishing to do around here and around these edges, and when I do go to colour it, I've decided that it's going to be green and red. There's something about a sort of Celtic design in green and red that really makes it pop. So I'm just going in and adding some extra detail and firming up my lines using my spoon-ended tool. Or my teaspoon, if that's what you're using. And it's just a case of burnish backwards and forwards, just like we did with edging, to create this good, strong, solid line. Now, if you don't have the carving tools and you literally just have a teaspoon and your Stanley knife, this is all you need to do. Don't worry about doing the hammering. In fact, if you're any good with this sort of carving tool, you don't need to have chisels, punches and hammers at all. Because of the style of the piece, I want to leave a bit of texture in there, so I'm actually adding every now and then just little breaks so that he almost looks like he's been chiselled into the leather instead of just popping out from it. And then once you're happy with the finish, you can leave it at that and go away and colour it up, but I don't really like big flat areas of leather, so what I'm going to do is go over a ballpoint pen and just freehand some scrolls and spirals in there. And this really is at your own discretion, just do what you feel like works. Just draw on and in. If you want to leave it as a big plain piece, leave it as a big plain piece. If you want to hammer a background into it, hammer a background into it. It really is personal preference. Just goes to prove you don't need anything technical or expensive to do this stage. Tooling leather is really just a case of getting stuck in and having a go. Pupil in the eye. Again, I'm just going to go in and fine up any details that I think might have gotten lost slightly. No expensive fancy tool, just literally a ballpoint pen that's run out of ink. You know what? I think that's about it. So I'm just going to go and put the final touch on the edges. You might recognise the slicking wheel from last episode, the other one before. I'm just using this to burnish the edges, and then I'm going to work a basic shape into the piece while it's still damp. Then peel off the backing. And reshape. And that's all there is to it. One shaped and tooled Archer's bracer, ready to go for colour. And if you join me again in the next episode, that's what we're going to be doing. And that's really all there is to it, guys. There's no black magic in leatherwork at all. It's just a case of getting your hands on the materials and going and giving it a try. You can now template, cut out and edge any piece of leather for any work ever, full stop. If you've watched the first video, you know how to do that. You can then join leather because you can sew it together. Pretty much every project you're ever going to do is that. Yes, we need to look at riveting. Yes, we need to look at more complicated stitching techniques, but they'll come. And now you know how to go ahead and carve a design into leather. And really, that's all you need to know to go out and make amazing pieces. You can do forming and shaping like we have on the bracer. See how it's beginning to hold its shape there? But again, nothing particularly complicated to go out and make amazing stuff. If you do look at the tools and think you don't know where to start, go down into the description in the video and there's a link to all the tools that I've used for this process. And you can grab them from Amazon. And if you use the links below, I get a little bit of a kickback from them. You can also go across to my Etsy store because I sell on there, and you can have a look at some of the more complicated pieces I've made. And you never know, you might even find something over there that you really, really like. Or you can literally go up there in the corner or up there in the banner on my channel and you can buy me a coffee. That's a PayPal donate button, and you can just throw me enough to get a pint of beer or a coffee. Every little helps, and it all goes to support this channel and the work that I do. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really, really hope that you found this useful and that you feel like you can go ahead and get stuck in making amazing stuff and doing really, really cool heritage crafts. I'll see you next time. Take care.